All right. I think we're live. I think we are live now. So let's get the disclaimers out of the way, get everything caught up here, and then we'll get going. This is a weekly live broadcast. If this is your first time here, I don't really have a topic planned out. This is just an opportunity to interact with everybody in the live chat itself, answer your questions, your comments. I try to respond to every comment, unless you're talking to each other. If you're addressing a comment to somebody else, I usually skip over it. That doesn't bother me. I just skip over it because I try to get to all of them, and I can't usually get to all of them, but I do my best. And let's see. The only things I ask, you can ask me anything you want to for the most part, but be family friendly, be polite. Don't start cussing anybody, calling them names or being rude or any of those things. Will kick you out. But other than that, everything else is pretty much fair game. So let's get into it. Let's see. We got a couple of people in here already. Lots of people in here already, actually. You guys have been busy while I've been while waiting on me. So we got Emergency Prep Guy says, hello, everyone from Iceberg, Idaho. It's supposed to get down to 20 to 30 degrees below zero with wind chill tomorrow night. We have gotten at least a foot of snow over the last few days. Wow, that does sound cold. 20 to 30 degrees below zero wind chill is nothing to balk out that for sure. We've got a cold front coming in. It's been really pretty warm around here. It's been in the 50s and 60s every day, up close to 70 some days. But we've got a drastic change coming. Saturday night, we've got a cold front coming through, and I think it's going to be 55 degrees high on Saturday or something like that. And then the cold front coming through, dropping down to 9 degrees, not the wind chill, the actual temperature, 9 degrees, and then only a high of like 31 or 32 the next day. So that's not quite 20 degree below. I don't know what the wind chill is going to be, but it's going to be cold. All right. The entire population of Australia. Oh, wait. Verna. I skipped over Verna. Good evening to you, Verna. Good to see you. Happy New Year to you as well. And the entire population of Australia says, yeah, it's almost New Year tomorrow. Yeah, you guys are ahead of us, aren't you? Yeah, it's Friday in Australia, isn't it? 11:52 a.m. on Friday. Wow, that's a long time ahead of us. Well, thanks for joining the live broadcast. I don't know how you can. I couldn't do it if it was 11 o'clock my time in the morning. But anyway, Verna says, I'm eating dinner while I wait. The entire population. Yeah, okay, going on. There we go. Verna says, what's the time where you're at? Okay, there we go. Got the answer to that. 11:52 a.m. in Australia, and you said it's 7:51 in Ohio. Well, it's 7 o'clock here now. That was obviously 9 minutes ago. Hey, Whiskey Tango Farms is here. Good to see you guys. Thanks for joining. Yeah, entire population of Australia says you guys know each other. Yeah. Everybody knows Verna. Verna knows Whiskey Tango Farms. We all met at Quail Con this last year, and so yeah, she does help out on Whiskey Tango Farms YouTube channel and on Zach's channel, I believe, during his live broadcasts. Quite a bit of help there. All right. I don't know K or B. I don't know what any of that means, so I'll skip over that. Who's that? Entire population of Australia says, Happy New Year to everyone. I hope you're all having a great time. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to you as well. Good evening to you, Keith. Good to see you. 12 gauge. Hey, Chris from Mountain View, Arkansas. Good to see you. Mountain View, I've looked that up. That's not too terribly far from me, I don't think. Let me look it up again real quick. Let's see. Where is that on the map? I'm looking. It's a little ways away. It's quite a ways away, actually. I was completely wrong. Sorry. Anyway, good to see you anyway. Everyday Oil Mommy says, hey, Chris, thanks for doing the Q&A today. Did you ever find a recipe for pickled quail eggs that you liked? Have you tried balsamic vinegar or ginger garlic Asian herb mix? How's the texture? No, I haven't found a recipe for pickled quail eggs that I liked. I've tried pickled eggs a couple of different times, a couple of different ways, and there's none of them I really like. It's just a weird thing to me. I don't know. It's very similar to me to pickled sausage, which sometimes I kind of like a pickled sausage, but I don't know. With eggs, it's just, I don't know. It's just weird to me. I haven't found one I liked. So no, I haven't tried too many of them. I'm not against trying another one just to see, but I can't imagine I'm going to find one I really like. So Swanson says, Happy New Year, everyone. Let's drop these likes. They expire at the end of the year, so use them all up before they're gone. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Let's see. Verna, 12 here and only 7 likes. Come on, people. Marty says, good evening, everyone from West Virginia. Good evening to you, Marty. Yeah, it's not even for Australia, but thanks you anyway. Dixon's Homestead, good to see you guys. Thanks for joining. It says hello from Idaho, where it's very, very cold. Getting worse. Bad storm on its way here. Supposed to be -10 Fahrenheit tonight. Yeah, we heard from somebody else about Idaho earlier. Wasn't that? Who was that? Emergency prep guy? Yeah, he's in Idaho as well. He was complaining about the weather too. And yeah, that sounds pretty cold. Make sure you leave your water dripping, unhook all your hoses, and you know the deal. Rednecked Poultry says, good evening from North Carolina. And there's somebody else from North Carolina. Bags of Love. Welcome to both of you guys. Thanks for joining. Robert says, hello, Chris. How was your Christmas? It was good. Hopefully you guys all had a good Christmas too. My Christmas was good. Got to spend time with family, and we had a good meal. I did almost all the cooking, really, but that's okay. I don't mind cooking. I make a pretty good turkey, so everybody was pretty happy with it. But yeah, all in all, it was a good Christmas. We had a good time. Brittany Olson says, if anyone is in Minnesota looking for breeder rabbits, looking to sell some pedigree. Boy, I wish I was closer. I am looking for some rabbits and pedigreed rabbits, but that's a long way away from me. S. McKee says, just got to sell it on baby egg, size of my thumbnail. Yeah, that's actually, those are pretty common when birds first start laying. Whether they're celadon or not is irrelevant, but those little tiny eggs like that, it's not uncommon at all when the birds first start laying, or first start laying when they first come into the season, whenever they first hit age, or they, start laying again after a break. It takes a little while for them to kind of regulate and get their eggs in line. So you'll get some weird eggs, some great big eggs, some little bitty tiny eggs, eggs with no shells on them, some of those kinds of things going on. It's nothing to worry about. It will even out more than likely. Reineck says, howdy, fellow North Carolinians. I think that's how you say it. Carolinians. Yeah. Robert's saying hello to Max. Yeah, he's in the background here. What's up, buddy? He's got a hurt leg, his back right leg. He's kind of, I don't know, he limps on it. He holds it up in the air half the time. It's getting a little bit better. We're going to be watching it for a couple of days. But Verna says, Chris, that is what's scaring me. Drastic temperatures can take animals out. Yeah, drastic temperature changes can. I'm not really too worried about it. I think they're going to be fine. I mean, 9 degrees is cold, and it's been fairly warm. But we've been getting down in the 40s. We had some 30s and 20s at night a couple of weeks ago. They did fine with that. I'm sure they're going to be fine with this coming one as well. But you're right. It is a little bit of a cause for concern. No more rabbits. Don't have any rabbits. Got rid of them. You guys have been watching the videos. You probably know already. They aged out, really. They weren't good for breeding anymore. So I'm in the market for new rabbits right now. But I did find somebody to take the old rabbits from me. I don't know what they're going to do with them. They've got rabbits already. They were surprised at how big they were. So my guess is they don't have meat rabbits. But they wanted some new rabbits. I told them they were older. They weren't worth breeding. Make sure you keep them separate because the buck will try to breed the doe. But anyway, hopefully they do well for them. Hey, it's Jasmine. Good to see you, Jasmine. Thanks for tuning in. Adriana, hello from Stockton, California. Good to see you. Thank you for tuning in tonight. 12 Gauge says, just hatched a bunch of chicks off. Got the brooder box going. They are cute little things. Yes, they are. I've got 40-ish in the brooder box right over here behind me. I always look back like you guys can see it. But yeah, 40-ish birds in that brooder box back there. And as cold as it's getting outside, they may have to stay in the brooder box for another couple of weeks. The only problem is there's like 40 of them in there, and that's going to get pretty crowded next week. So I may have to break out the other box and split them up and have 2 brooder boxes going, but that's not that big a deal. I got them weaned down to about 80 degrees on the temperature already. They're about a week and a half old, almost 2 weeks old, probably roughly 2 weeks, I guess. So I got them weaned down to about 80 degrees in the brooder box. They're doing just fine. Did lose one. It hatched about a week late from all the others, and it had wryneck really bad. So I called it. And I gave it a couple of days to see if it was correct, but it didn't. So I ended up calling it. Unfortunate, but sometimes those things happen. And other than that, everything else is doing fine. I think I lost 1 or 2 more in the brooder when I first moved them in, but all the rest of them are doing great. All right. Let's see. S. McKee says, a while back I asked you about the end to use egg scissors on. I said big end, and everyone else said no. Do the small end. I tried big end, and it works way better. I don't remember saying the small end, but yeah, I always do the big end as well. If I said the small end, I probably got confused or something. Who knows? But yeah, you're right. I do the big end. I think it works better as well. Hey, Laura Shell Farms here. Says, good evening, one. Mark from Connecticut. Jasmine says, how do you find new breeder rabbits? Mine are done. No babies for the last 2 breeders from my does. Super bummed. Would you go with a young rabbit or a proven adult? Thanks. You know, I don't know if that there's a set rule on that for me necessarily. Well, there isn't for me necessarily. What I'm looking for is some good pedigree rabbits. So I'm looking for like New Zealand whites, Tamuks, if I can find them. There was an ad for Tamuks on Craigslist. It's in Oklahoma, about a 2.5-hour drive for me. So it's a ways away, but it's not too far. I could probably make it down there. I sent them a message, never got a response from them. So I don't know if they're still selling them or what. There is a breeder outside of Springfield that sometimes advertises on Craigslist with Tamuk rabbits, but I haven't seen them on there for a while, and I don't have their contact information. And then I think there's another one around Tulsa, which is not too far. I could drive to Tulsa if I needed to. But mostly what I do is I watch Craigslist. You can check online for rabbit breeders in your area. That's kind of hit or miss. Sometimes you find some rabbit breeders, but most of those are going to be, most that I find in our area anyway are, like lop-ear bunny rabbit. I mean, they're like pet breeders. They breed lops or lion heads, or they're all those little pet mini Rexes, those kinds of things. So it is tough for sure. Somebody sent me some information on a breeder in Arkansas. It's a good couple of hour drive from here as well, but I'd have to look back at that. I can't remember where it was right offhand in the information for them. But anyway, it's definitely hard. And as far as going for young rabbits or older rabbits, if I get good pedigree rabbits, I don't mind going for young rabbits. Pedigrees are one of those things that kind of gives you a little bit more assurance. In fact, I really don't mind going for young rabbits either way. It's just it just all depends. The only problem with going for older rabbits too, though, I would say they may be proven breeders, but why is the person getting rid of that rabbit if it's a proven breeder? And my only concern would be if it's a really old rabbit. You may be getting rabbits that are just about to age out anyway. You may not have much time left with them. Hopefully you wouldn't find a breeder that would do that to you, but you never know. Hey, Jupiter's here. Haven't seen you in a while. Good to see you again. Thanks for joining. Says, hope you're doing well, Chris. I am. Thank you. Hope you are too. Gary from Rowan County, North Carolina says, Chris, and to all the Quail family and friends out there. Oh, hello from Rowan County. Yeah. Hello to you too. Thank you for joining. Manuel, do you give your does anything for them to produce more milk? No, I don't find it an issue. There's a couple things you want to stay away from. So stay away from anything in the mint family that can dry them up a little bit. That would include dandelion, mint, any of that kind of stuff. Stay away from that kind of stuff, but I don't generally feed that stuff to my rabbit anyway, so it's not a problem. If you want to, you could give some calf manna. You can get that from any kind of feed store usually. That is kind of a common thing that a lot of people do is feed some of that to their doe to help with milk production. I've never found it necessary, so I don't do any of that kind of stuff. All right, Rednecked. You guys are talking to other people. I'll let you do it. Laura Shell says, did Chris get rabbits for Christmas? No, I did not get rabbits for Christmas. I'm not sure I would want anybody to be buying rabbits for me for Christmas. They don't necessarily know. None of my family or friends really know what they're looking for when it comes to a good meat rabbit. So although I would appreciate the gesture, I just don't know that they would actually be able to find a good meat rabbit for me. But that would be nice. All right. Where's that? Mirseric, I think it is. Thanks for all the videos on rabbits. Have helped me a lot. Keep it up from Alabama. Well, thank you for the kind comments. I'm glad you found the videos helpful. Cheryl says, hi, watch you all the time. We're getting ready to do quail. We have an indoor setup. What temperature range should I be looking at? Does gravity water system work okay? Yeah, the gravity water system works great. Now, I'm not sure what you mean by what temperature range should I be looking for. Let's see. You have an indoor setup. Quail are, my quail are outside. I live in Southwest Missouri, so they go through really hot, humid summers. They go through pretty cold winters. Like I said, we're getting down to 9 degrees. We had negative -5, -10 degrees, I think it was last year. Temperature, not wind chill. And they do just fine. As long as they have a wind block, the temperature is kind of irrelevant. It doesn't really matter that much. Now, for your convenience, you might want to keep it above freezing because then you can use your gravity watering system. You don't have to worry about it freezing up or any of those kinds of things. But the quail themselves, they're incredibly hardy, so you don't have to worry too much about the temperature range. I'd say they're probably most comfortable in, probably 50 to 70 degrees, that range right there. But they're going to be just fine no matter really what the temperature gets. 12 gauge says the new hatchlings take me up to about 90 quail. Wow, that's quite a bit. That's a lot of quail for sure. Congratulations on the new hatch, by the way. Jasmine says, I have 3 brooder boxes filled with tiny floofers, about 100. That's quite a bit too. Says I only do the big end with the quail egg scissors as well. Yeah, me too. I don't remember everybody suggesting the small end. I think I would have corrected that, but maybe not. Robert says, how do you feel about the little alfalfa cubes for rabbits? I don't know that I have much of a feeling at all about them. I haven't personally used them. The only thing I would say about alfalfa, and it's not that big of a deal. You can go ahead and feed those to your rabbits if you want to. But if you're feeding them rabbit pellets, those are primarily alfalfa already. So it might be better to switch over to like Timothy hay or something like that, because alfalfa is pretty high in calcium. There is a little bit of a concern about, rabbits getting too much calcium. I don't know how big of an issue that is. I don't really know that it's that big of a problem. But there is a little bit of a concern about that. I actually have moved away from feeding a lot of hay to my rabbits. I do from time to time, but then I kind of just get lazy and don't do it. And they don't actually have to have hay. Pellets provide a complete nutrition for them. So it's really everything that they need. But if you want to give them some alfalfa cubes, go ahead and do it. I don't think there's anything wrong with it at all. Laura Shell says the big end is fine until the eggs are big enough that they don't fit anymore. Well, that's a good point. Yeah, if they're great big eggs, they won't fit, that's for sure. Let's see. Jupiter says, I hold the egg by the pointy end and cut off the wider end myself. Yeah, it seems like everybody's in agreement with that. What are we going on here about? I must have missed a comment earlier. I'll let you guys talk to each other. All right, there we go. Robert says, just keep in mind, I will be coming to Oklahoma in March. I don't have papers, but I have pure New Zealand. Well, there you go. If I'm still looking for rabbits in March, remind me about that. Hit me back up, because I very well may be looking to get some. S. McKee says, I brought 6 hens and a roux inside because they were in the middle of molting when the temperature went down to 6 degrees. They still haven't started growing in new feathers. Should I keep them in? It's a good question. Excuse me. That's a good question. I've had birds molt when it's pretty cold outside, but to be on the safe side, I think I'd wait. That's really cold. And if they don't have any feathers, then it's going to be hard for them to stay warm. I'd be worried about it getting frostbite and those kinds of things. So yeah, it's probably a good idea to keep them in until it either warms up or they grow some feathers back in, or both. Shouldn't take them that long, a couple of weeks, maybe at the most, to grow their new feathers in. So yeah, it's probably a good idea. Let's see. You guys are talking to each other, so it gets me confused. Brittany says, we're fully registered ARBA Rabbitry. We sell both Black New Zealand and Netherland Dwarf, located in Minnesota. Well, if I was closer, I'd be looking. I haven't raised Black New Zealands, but I wouldn't be against it. If I was closer, I'd look into it. Maybe somebody else in the area is. I don't know. Cheryl, what temperature range would you keep quail? I think I already answered this, but yeah, it doesn't. There's not really a big issue with, is that, well, yeah, I did already answer that, didn't I? Yep. It just takes me a little while to get to the comments. So just hang in there, be patient. Yeah. Oh, you're welcome for the answers. Marty says, hey, Chris, what do you use to keep up with your rabbit's teeth from overgrowing? I don't use anything. I never have a problem. Look at that. 12 gauge with a $10 super chat just because, he says. Well, thank you so much, 12 gauge. That is very kind of you. I appreciate that. All right. No, I don't use anything for keeping my rabbit's teeth in check. I usually will throw like a piece of an untreated 2x4 or something in there for them to chew on. Some of the rabbits use that, some of them don't that much, but I leave it in there just to give them something to do, as much to break boredom as it is for anything else, just to make them as comfortable as possible. But I don't ever have any problems with teeth overgrowing. I think if you do have problems with your rabbit's teeth overgrowing, my belief is that that's primarily a genetic issue, and you should look at culling that from your breeding program. Don't, and I mean, if you're breeding just the offspring or just meat, it doesn't really matter. But if you plan on making future breeders out of the offspring, I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't breed that rabbit with teeth overgrowing and then plan on keeping those young and making future breeders out of them. That's one of those things. Same thing with sore hawks. If you've got a rabbit that's prone to sore hawks, I would cull it, remove it from the breeding program. That is primarily a genetic issue. So I'd stay away from those things. Cheryl says, our rabbits are not wanting to breed. Very frustrating. Tried extra light, vinegar, sunflower seeds, getting ready to exit the rabbit business. We're selling to feed stores. Oh, yeah, that's a pretty common issue. Let's see. Your rabbits are not wanting to breed. Very frustrating. Tried extra light, vinegar. Interesting. Sunflower seeds. Yeah, there's a couple of things that you can do. My guess is that if your rabbits are not wanting to breed, it's probably your doe. Your doe is wanting to just tuck down in the corner and let the buck mount. That's a pretty common issue with does, especially newer does, first-time moms. And it's incredibly frustrating. I agree. I've had those issues before too. So a couple of things you can do. Usually repeated, trying over and over again. So like morning, night, morning, night, morning, night. Make sure, first of all, you always take your doe to your buck. You probably already know that. Don't ever take the buck to the doe. Now, if you want to put the buck in a neutral cage and then bring the doe to a neutral cage so it's not his cage she's going into, that sometimes can help as well. But trying over and over and over again, usually 4 or 5 times of that. So you try in the morning, 10 minutes, put her back in her cage, put her back in the evening, 10 minutes, put her back in her cage, next morning, next evening, next morning, next evening, usually 4 or 5 tries of that. And she'll start to loosen up a little bit and she may go ahead and lift for him. If that fails and that doesn't work, there's a trick that everybody swears by. I don't know why it would work, but there's so many people talking about it and so many people that just swear that it does. There's got to be something to it. And that's take the doe, put her in a pet carrier, put her in your car, drive her around the block a couple of times, and then put her in with the buck. Don't know why that would work, but again, lots of people swear by it. So it's a trick that's worth trying as well. If that doesn't work, you can resort to force breeding, where you would hold the doe, basically lift, put your hand underneath her and lift her up to allow the buck to mount. That's, it's not that easy to do, but sometimes that will get them past that first breeding attempt, and then they're usually fine after that. So those are a couple of more things that you can try if you haven't tried those already. By vinegar, I'm guessing you mean apple cider vinegar. I don't know that. I mean, there's no reason that that's going to really necessarily put them in the mood. You're on the right track with extra light. If you can get the light up to about 14 hours a day, sometimes that will help with that a little bit. But I don't know, extra sunflower seeds or any of those kinds of things. I mean, they're not going to hurt anything, but I don't know that they're going to help at all with any of your breeding. So hopefully that helps a little bit. I hate to see you have to give up. Worst case scenario, if that is the issue, your does are not wanting, being receptive, you could look at just replacing your does, because, it's just, I've had does that were difficult to breed, and it's so much easier when you have a doe that just lifts every time for the buck. So hopefully that helps a little bit. Brittany says, we live in Minnesota, got down to -40 last year. Quail and rabbit did just fine. Good shelter is all you need. Yeah, I agree. Just give them a break from the wind. That's it. They're going to be fine. Manuel says there is a breeder in Warsaw, Missouri, who has a pedigree silver foxes. If you're interested, I might be. Let me see. I can't remember where Warsaw is. Let me look that one up on the map real quick and see how far away that is. Is that over by Lake of the Ozarks, or let's see, where is that? That's a lot of places I don't know the names. It is over by Lake of the Ozarks. Now, there's El Dorado Springs, Nevada. That's a little ways. Yeah, that's probably 3 hours-ish from me. So that's not bad. I might be interested in that one later. Right now, I'm kind of looking more for some New Zealand whites, but silver foxes are a good rabbit. So who knows? I might very well be interested in that. See what, if you stick around for a while, see where I'm at in a couple of weeks and hit me back up on it and let me know. Or just send me the details. You can send it to my email, Chris@slightlyredneck.com. I'm pretty bad about responding to email. I don't typically respond to Facebook messages because I get so many Facebook messages. I just can't keep up with them. So I just got to a point where I just don't even pay attention to them because it was just nonstop. I was getting so many of them. And I don't mind. I wish I could help everybody out, but I got a full-time job, a family. I got all kinds of things going on. I don't have time to be answering them all the time. And instead of picking and choosing which ones I do, I just typically don't even look at them. All right, Jake says, what is mint? But anyway, like I said, if you send it to my email, though, Chris at slightlyredneck.com, I will get that. I'll be able to hold on to it. I try to respond to email, but I'm not the greatest at that either. Jake says, what is meant by a dry hatch for quail? That basically means you don't add any water to the incubator at all. So typically when you're hatching quail or any bird for that matter, you're adding some water to the water channels at the bottom of the incubator to bring the humidity levels up in line with what you want. Now, dry hatches for me, in the wintertime, they don't work at all. It's just the humidity is too low. It's in the 40% range, and that's just too low. The eggs are going to dry up. Dry hatch is not good. But in the summertime, our humidity levels outside are like 80%. I mean, the humidity is pretty high in the summer here. And then a dry hatch works just fine. It's a great thing. Get pretty good hatch rates with that. But you're just going to have to kind of figure out what it is in your area. Really what you want is a humidity level between about 60% to 70% during the first 14 days. And then whenever you go into lockdown, bump that up to about 75%. Try not to go over 80%. Those are kind of the ideal humidities, but really temperature is more important than humidity. So you can try out a dry hatch if you want to, but my suggestion would be if your outside humidity is 40% or below 50%, I think I would go ahead and just add some water, try to bump it up just a little bit. Now you should probably do some dry runs with your incubator and figure out how much water that's going to take. Now remember, humidity is by surface area, not volume, not depth of water. So you've got those little channels like, well, here, let's use this as an example. So this soda can is very narrow, and this is the only surface area on it. So if you have this soda can full, or pretend there's not a top on it, it's just open, that's not going to provide as much humidity as if you had the same volume of water in a long, thin tray. That surface area is going to provide more volume or more humidity. So you can fill one of the trays all the way, like you've got channels in your incubator. Usually all I do is fill one, maybe two of them all the way up. But that's going to provide, more humidity. Well, if you fill multiple channels up with a little bit of water, that'll give you more of a boost in humidity than if you were to fill one channel up all the way to the top, if that makes sense. So play with your incubator a little bit. When I add water to it, I do fill the channel that I'm filling all the way to the top, so it'll last as long as possible. I know that's not really exactly what your question was, but hopefully that kind of helps you out a little bit. All right, 12 gauge says, LOL, tell her to drive them around. Yeah, that's I don't know why it works, but everybody swears by it. There's got to be something to it. Jake, Happy New Year to you too. Thank you. Silverback Stacker says maybe it's the vibrations in the car. Okay, maybe. I don't know. S. McKee says, Marty, you can use side cutter pliers to clip the rabbit's teeth. Oh, that sounds hideous, doesn't it? It probably has an overlap that keeps it from eating properly. But I have clipped and they do fine. Yeah, that's a hideous thought to me. Oh, clipping their teeth with pliers. Oh, that sounds horrible. I don't know that I could do that. But I mean, I know it works, but that's like nails on a chalkboard just thinking about it. All right. James says, question, is it possible to make quail molt on demand? I'm in favor of giving them a rest, but it'd be useful to have it happen according to plan. Now, I don't think there's really a way to make a molt on demand. What I usually find is that mine tend to molt about the time the season change. So when we start going into fall, usually they start molting right then. And again, when we start going into spring, it seems like they molt right then too. But I don't know of a way to actually make them molt. I don't think of any. I don't know. Laura Shell Farm says, Chris, I have a really nice size fowl fee hen. She's the only one with all her feathers in great shape. Everyone else is missing feathers. My guess is that she needs to go. Just looking for confirmation. It's a tough one. Yeah, I mean, who knows for sure. But yeah, a lot of the times if you've got feathers missing from your birds and it's due to aggression, a lot of the times it is a hen. Now, sometimes that's a lack of protein. So I don't know what kind of what level of protein you're using in your feed. But if they've got a very low protein level, a lot of times they'll go to picking feathers off of other birds because feathers are made up primarily of protein. So you might try bumping your protein up a little bit if you're using something, say 20% or lower in protein. Bump it up a little bit to 25 or 30%. You can add, some ground up cat food or catfish food or something like that to it, or just get a higher protein feed and put her on that for a little while and see if that fixes it. Without seeing her for sure, attacking some of the other birds, it's hard to point out for her necessarily, to say 100% that's the bird that's doing it, but you're on the right track, I think. I mean, it does sound like the evidence points that direction. Verna says, hit the thumbs up. People show Chris appreciation. Thank you, Verna. I appreciate that. Who's that? Mecor Acres Rick. Yeah, good evening, Chris. And the Quail folk, good evening to you, too. Thank you for joining. Shahid, I think I said that right, says, I have an incubator with W1209 temp controller. I have a few other thermometers, and all are showing different temperatures. 1209 is 37.7. HTC is 37.1. Mini hydrometer is 37.3. Wooden analog is 37.9. How do I know the exact temp? Boy, good question on that. I'm not real familiar with all those different thermometers, so I can't say one way or the other. The first thing to do would be to try to calibrate them. If you're able to calibrate any of them, you would do that with ice water and boiling water. Basically just check the temperature of both of those and see where they're at. On the other hand, I mean, you're talking about, a very little difference in thermometer or in temperature right there. I don't know that I'd worry about it too much. I think I'd just kind of average them together and figure out that's probably what the actual temperature is and just call it good. They're all 37 point something. So you might throw out the lowest one and the highest one. But, if you can, just get a good mercury thermometer or, get a good thermometer that you can calibrate, like a non-digital dial, meat thermometer. And just look up a video on like how to calibrate a thermometer. You'll figure it out. It's not that hard, but it is a little bit complex math for me to try to explain in the live video. And, get two of them, calibrate them, make sure they're accurate, and then check those against your other ones. That's my best suggestion for you there. I wish I had a better answer and could say, oh, here's the answer, but I don't know. I don't know which one's right either. Without calibrating them, it's really hard to know. Marty says, thank you, Chris, and S. McKee. Info is very appreciated. Well, you're absolutely welcome. That's what we're here for. Paula says, which is better for chicken, for a chicken coop, shavings or straw? Boy, that's a good question. I don't actually have any chickens in a chicken coop. I think if I did, I don't know that one's necessarily better than the other. My thoughts are, just thinking about it, if there's a lot of moisture in there, straw has a tendency to want to mold. So that would be one thing I would be concerned about there. The other thing, wood shavings, if you've got wood shavings in there, and there's any kind of moisture at all with that, they have a tendency to get pretty hot as they start breaking down. So, that could be a concern as well there. I don't know that one's necessarily that much better than the other one. I think either one's going to work just fine. So I don't know. We'll see if somebody else in here has got some good advice on that, because that's not necessarily my level of expertise. G. Michael says, is there a length of time too long not to breed meat rabbits? I hope the question makes sense. Yeah, like you're saying, you let them go for 6 months and then try to breed them. I don't know that that's yeah, it's probably, 6 months is not too long. I do that all the time. But let's say you're saying basically like, well, what if I let them go for a year and then try to breed them? I haven't bred them in a year. Would that be too long? I don't know that there is any kind of length of time where it's necessarily too long to go ahead and breed them. Definitely not for the bucks. For the does, you might have a little bit of problem getting them to start breeding again, but I don't think that's a big issue. Now, there is some concern with, waiting too long to breed a first-time doe. Like, the first time she breeds, if you wait too long for that, then it could make it more difficult for her to breed. She may not want to breed at all. And secondly, for her to actually conceive and to have the babies, or she may have smaller litters or some of those kinds of things because she's built up too much fat, maybe on her ovaries or something like that. There is a little bit of concern with that. You're best off trying to breed them before they get to be a year old. 6 months to a year old is the time frame on most does when you're looking to get them bred. for the first time. But once you've got them bred once before, I don't know that. I mean, I'm sure, yeah, if you went for like 2.5 years, then yeah, but then you're starting to push the age of the rabbit to being too old anyway at that point. Not really. I mean, she's still got some time left, but yeah, that might be a little bit long. I've never tried, so I don't know that there's a big issue with that. Amber says, excited to catch a live, loving to learn from your channel, new to rabbits. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for watching the videos, first of all, and I'm glad you are finding them helpful. All right, 12 Gauge says, I can't get dry hatches to work either here in northern Arkansas. I got to add water always. Yeah, I've done it in the summertime, and it's fine. It's worked just fine for me. But in the wintertime, it doesn't work. Yeah, I got to add water. Jeremy says, what do you do with your new grow out rabbits if they start throwing their pellets on the ground typically and do not ever add any additives, alfalfa hay, or special seeds to help them grow? Oh, and do you ever add any alternatives, alfalfa hay? Okay, no, if you want the best growth rate out of your rabbits, pure pellets is going to be the best growth rate you're going to get. If you start adding other things in there, it's just diluting the pellets. The pellets are a complete nutritional balanced diet. I mean, they've got everything that they need. And if you start diluting those down with lots of extra hay or grass, vegetables or whatever, then you're not gonna get good growth. Now, the exception to that might be some sunflower seeds, but don't go overboard with sunflower seeds. Rabbits love them. Everything loves sunflower seeds, and most, a lot of animals will not overeat except for on sunflower seeds. So if you're adding sunflower seed, black oil sunflower, you want to do that in just small amounts. It is good for them. They're really high in fat though. So you don't want to go overboard with those. Anyway, I don't know that I've had too many issues with any rabbits throwing their pellets on the ground. What you would probably want to do at that point is, if you're saying it's your grow out rabbits, it's probably all of them. If you can restrict their access to the feeder, boy, that's a tough one because you really want to keep them fed all the time. So I don't know if you can my guess is that they're getting in the feeder and digging it out. So you might try raising the feeder up a little bit, seeing if that helps. If that's a possibility, you may not be able to do that. You might try putting something over the top of the feeder to kind of block it off so they can't get into it as easily. They can still get to it to eat, but maybe not get their feet in it. I don't know if I have any better suggestions for you. I'm sorry. I wish I did. Nick says, hey, Chris, Merry Christmas. Reason why some of my quails are laying really small eggs. Does a quail being young cause this problem? I'm afraid they are too small and won't develop any chicks. Yeah, I mean, now if you're saying this is a regular issue, like your birds are consistently, I'm rereading the question to see if it was in there, but yeah, if your birds are consistently laying really, really small eggs, and it's occurred more than like 2 weeks at a time, they've been laying eggs for more than 2 weeks, then that may be an issue to look at. That's probably a genetics issue of some kind. But if it's just like they just started laying and you've gotten a handful of really small eggs from them, give them a couple of weeks. They'll get over that. That is common when birds first start laying. And not necessarily because they're young. It's common when they first start laying. It's common when they've taken a break and start laying again. Those kinds of things are common. You also get eggs sometimes with no shell on them. Great big double yolk eggs, all kinds of weird things in there. It just happens. It's not that big of a deal. It's nothing to worry about. They'll level out in a couple of weeks, but it usually takes them about 2 weeks to get over that. So if it's a continuing issue, past that time, past 2 weeks, then that would be I would be concerned about, having some kind of genetic issue with the birds and trying to isolate the ones that are laying the small eggs and culling them out of your breeding stock. Now, if they're all for meat anyway, it doesn't matter. You can just eat them. But hopefully it's not all your birds all the time that are laying really small eggs. Verna's got a good suggestion for you too. Says if they're at least 8 grams, the eggs will do fine. That is true, but if they're really, really small, and that's the other thing too. I don't know how many quail you have, how many you've had before. So are these really small eggs compared to chicken eggs, or are they really small quail eggs? I don't mean this is rude, but do you know the difference? Have you had quail long enough to know what a bigger quail egg looks like? So, sorry, I saw another comment from you. I thought we'd be expanding on that, but it doesn't look like it is. So, to Verna's point though, if they're at least 8 grams, then yeah, they're viable. They'll probably hatch, but you may want to look at getting, if it is a continuing issue and you've got really small eggs going for a really long period of time, you may want to look at getting some different breeding stock that's a little bit higher quality. You can order from Whiskey Tango Farms, Myshire Farms. I mean, there's several different breeders you can order eggs from, hatch them out, and you'll get some really good jumbo birds that'll lay slightly bigger eggs. Casey says, hello, all I got. I don't know what that means, but, oh, there it is. There's the rest of it. Hello. Hang on just a second. I'll see what that was. It seemed like, oh, no, sorry. Where are we at here? Hello, all. I got my first 240 eggs from Myshire today. Tomorrow is set day. Awesome. Good luck with those. I hope they do well. I'm sure they will. Myshire eggs are great. You're going to have good success with those. Nick says, have you ever, Chris, thought about breeding finches or any other type of birds? Not really. No, not really. I mean, I don't know of anybody eating finches, so I'm in it for meat and eggs. I haven't really thought about breeding any other birds. I did think about getting pigeons at one time, homing pigeons, and I still kind of toy with that every once in a while. But I don't know that that'll ever happen. Oh, there's a good point too. S. McKee's talking about the shavings or the straw. Says shavings. I bought straw once and it had northern foul mites in it. That would be bad. Casey says shavings is better than straw. Straw stinks after a while. Shavings soak up the moisture. Okay, there you go. Yeah, I would worry about straw. I mean, straw gets pretty nasty pretty quick if it gets wet, and it's going to break down really fast, and it could get moldy and all those kinds of things. So, yeah, I think you're probably right. The shavings would probably be better. The Blind Farmer says, hello from Southern Virginia. And the entire population of Australia says, I love rabbits. Good. Blessed with pets. Oh, my gosh, I just missed. Oh, I almost missed it. I've been waiting. How are we doing on time? We got 20 minutes left. You got plenty of time. Jason, let's see. I live in Texas. I raise quail. Oh, I raise quail in the garage. Can it be too hot or cold for them? Should I put a portable AC or heater to keep it cold in the garage? I think if I lived in Texas, I did live in Texas for a while, so I know it gets pretty hot down there in the summertime. It gets just as hot here, though, honestly, and they do fine outside. Now, if you've got them in a garage, my guess is that the key there is going to be ventilation. As long as you have plenty of ventilation, I don't think you need to worry about adding a AC heater or any of those kinds of things to it. You say a portable AC or a heater, you probably definitely don't need a heater. It probably doesn't get that cold at all there. As far as an AC goes, I mean, you could if you wanted to. It's probably not necessary. At the most, you might want to add a fan. I would suggest, though, if you have the ability, get them out of your garage. That's going to take care of a lot of your issues for you. I do try to put them in a shaded area so that they are, like the south side, the north side of your house or something like that. So the sun doesn't just beat down on their hutch all day long. They have a little bit of shade in the summertime. But you probably don't need to worry about adding AC to it. They're incredibly heat tolerant. The thing I would worry about in a garage is that it can get pretty stuffy and pretty, you don't have good airflow in there. And that's going to be kind of the key. All right, G. Michael says, question, how do you keep track of the ages of your quail in order to call the older ones? I don't really keep track of them necessarily, but I did a video a little while back talking about how you can kind of tell the age of your birds. If you watch their beaks are like fingernails. They continue to grow throughout their entire life. So usually your birds that have more of a curled upper beak, and it'll usually be white at the tip, those are going to be your older birds. I just kind of guess at it. You kind of get after a while. I don't know how to explain it, but you kind of after a while can kind of look at a bird and tell if it's a little bit older or a little bit younger. Usually what I do, though, is I've got, I'll breed a batch of quail, and I'll plan when I've got those hatching, these are going to be future breeders for me. And I'll pick out the birds that are going to be the future breeders, or I'll keep them in a separate hutch whatsoever, or all together. And then I'll just go ahead and put all the rest of them in the freezer. So I'm not really picking out which ones are older and which ones are younger from those. I just let the next batch come in and replace them, if that makes sense. And that makes it pretty easy. But I don't tag them or anything like that, so I know how old any of them are. I just kind of just wing it, and it works. Blessed with Pets says, I still can't get my Virgin Mini Rex does to lift, and I've tried just about everything. They're 10 months old now, and I just don't know anymore. I wish my parents would let me get new does. That's a tough one. We talked about that just a little bit ago. Yeah, 10 months old. They should be ready to breed by now. If you haven't already, try to add some light, get it up to 14 hours a day of light. A couple other things you can try. Like I said, put them in a pet carrier. And I'm guessing that you don't drive since you're having to ask permission for your parents, but you might see if they'll take you. Put them in a pet carrier, put them in the car, drive them around the block a few times, and then put them in with the buck and see if that works. All else fails, you can resort to force breeding and manually holding the doe, putting your hand underneath her and lifting her up to allow the buck to mount and breed. Those are that's tricky to do, but it's a possibility. I'm sorry you're having that problem. I know what that's like. I've had it before, and it's incredibly frustrating. Yeah, Verna's saying the same thing to Jason. It says best to have air movement, better to have air circulating than to worry about cold or heat, like having an exhaust fan for your garage, something like that. Yeah, I agree. Blessed with Pets says parakeets or budgies are really fun to breed. Well, probably, but I'm not in it for the fun. I don't doubt it. I'm sure that they are. Apollo says, let's see, thanks for the help. I will get shavings. Oh, you're absolutely welcome. And let's see, we got Pam here says, we have open area that it rains in. Is that okay? For what are we talking about? For quail? For rabbits? I'm not sure. You didn't give me quite enough, but chances are, yeah, if it rains in it, if you're keeping your quail or your rabbits for that matter in an open area that it rains in, make sure they have a way to get out of the rain. Some kind of small shelter, something where they can get out of the rain. As long as they can get out of the rain, out of the wind, out of the snow, all those kinds of, they're fine. It's not going to be a big deal at all. If they're, if they want to stand out in the rain, then they can stand out in the rain, but they need to have that option to be able to get to a sheltered area and get out of the weather. And whether it's raining or not, you don't want them, being stuck out in the blazing sun, the wind, all those kinds of things. They need to have a way to get out of that. All right, Jasmine says, Chris, do you have an issue with frozen egg sickles when your temps are low? How do you sell quail eggs? And do you sell quail eggs to friends or neighbors, washed or unwashed? Boy, that's a good question. I don't sell a ton of well, yeah, it's frozen eggs. Yeah, when it gets really cold, eggs freeze. They do. Yeah, there's nothing around it. And I wouldn't sell those to anybody because once they're frozen, you can thaw them back out and use them, but they're not the same. They're not like fresh eggs. It's not good, high quality. You can use them like scrambled or whatever, and they're going to be okay. But it's not something I would sell to them. I do sell occasionally some eggs, but it's very rare. I don't do it on a regular basis. Now, if I am selling eggs for incubating, never wash them. If I'm selling eggs for eating, typically you would wash them. But here's my problem with that is that if you wash an egg, like scrub it, then the I don't know what you call it, the lifespan of the egg, how long it's going to stay fresh significantly decreases because you've washed off that bloom that protects the egg and keeps it fresh. So it's not going to last nearly as long once it's washed. So typically, now what I do, I keep a sandbox in there. So all my birds pretty much for the most part lay their eggs in the sandbox, and they usually are pretty clean. They don't look dirty at all. So if I have any eggs that have, something stuck to them, feces or any of that kind of stuff stuck to them, those don't get sold. I don't send those to anybody. That's just, common courtesy. But usually my eggs come out of the sandbox looking like they've been washed anyway. So it's not something I find necessary. I'll just tell them they haven't been washed. Wash them before you use them. They'll last longer if you don't wash them first. And that's usually fine. But most of the people I'm selling eggs to are people that have bought farm fresh eggs before. If I'm selling them for eating, they bought farm fresh eggs before, and those are hardly ever washed. So they're used to it. Pam says, is quail in an open area that it rains in? Is that okay? Yeah, I think I got that one answered for you already. S. McKee says, to Blessed with Pets, let your younger brother put the male in without you knowing about it. They will breed. Yeah, that's probably true. Then you won't know that they've been bred. Where are we at? How are we doing on time? We got about 10 minutes left. We're doing good. Jason says, my neighbors complained, so I moved them into my garage. They said the quail drive their dogs crazy. Well, tell them their dogs drive your quail crazy. They should put their dogs up. But no, don't do that. That's probably not being a good neighbor. So interesting. I don't know if you can work. That's a tough one. I know. You want to have good relationships with your neighbors. And if you are doing something that's, I mean, hopefully, hang on a second. Okay. Sorry. Never know if those coming through are important or not. Where are we at with the dogs? Yeah, that is a tough one. You want to have good relationships with your neighbors. You want to be a good neighbor, a good friend to them. So I don't know the best suggestion to give you on that one, unfortunately. But yeah, I would definitely. You're talking about raising them in your garage. That's why they're in your garage. Definitely add some ventilation, a fan or something to blow around, circulate the air a little bit so it doesn't get too stuffy in there. Tanya says, got a weird question for you. I have a boy rabbit in my house, and now he's starting to bite and grab me by the foot and the leg. And is that because he's at that age? Well, it could be. Good question. I think what I would do is not let a boy rabbit, or any rabbit for that matter, run loose in my house. But that's just me. So obviously he's probably a pet rabbit. And my guess is that if he's a pet rabbit, you're probably not going to be breeding him. And if that's the case, you might look at getting him neutered. That'll probably help. I really don't know the best ways to keep rabbits from nipping and biting. Make sure he has toys to play with, something to chew on besides you. That can help with that. But yeah, it sounds like territorial behavior to me, which is typically more of an issue with does than it is with bucks. But rabbits in general can get territorial. I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer for how to stop that or exactly why that is. You're probably on the right track. It's probably because he's coming of age. But I can't guarantee that one. Hey, Boris, good to see you. Entire population of Australia says, can you keep rabbits and quails together in the same cage? No, I wouldn't do that. That's not a good idea. Chances are the rabbits are going to kill the quail, stomp on them or whatever. Rabbits are really kind of solitary animals. They really don't. I know people raise them in colonies and they get along okay that way, but for the most part, they like their own space. So it's probably not a good idea to put quail in with them. No. I mean, unless you've got like a huge outdoor area where they can get away from each other and have their own space in that area. But in the same cage, not a good idea. Amber says, earliest age to breed in New Zealand, probably about 6 months is really about acceptable. There are people that breed them earlier than that, but it just seems like a little too early to me. I think 6 months is right about the earliest I would do it. Casey Outdoors says, I keep my quail in a pup trailer that I set windows in. I can open the windows in the summer and put a fan in for ventilation. Works out well. It's 10 by 24. Nice. That does sound like a nice setup. Pam says, we have them in an 8 by 10 building with the same size outside. What does that mean? We have them in a 8 by 10 building with the same size outside. So it's not like the TARDIS. It's not bigger on the inside, or I don't know what you mean by that one. I'm sorry. I'm being a little bit of a smart aleck. I don't mean it as a mean thing. It just threw me off. Let's go. It's framed outside, but I guess what it is, do they need some natural rain water along that? I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time with this one. I'm guessing you're typing on your phone. When I type on my phone, it all gets messed up, and I'm the same way. Okay. So we have an 8 by 10 building with the same size outside. It's framed outside, but I guess what it is, do they need some natural rainwater along? I don't know if there's more to that or not. They don't have to have natural rainwater. No. I'm kind of lost. I'm not sure exactly what to say with that. To say to that, I'm not 100% sure what you're asking me there. If that's in reference to, the rain, as long as they have a way to get out of the rain, that's all you have to worry about. Give them some kind of shelter to get out of the wind and the rain and all that kind of stuff. And if they want to access the rain, they can. If they don't have to. That's all you need. And you don't need to worry about providing them with anything special as far as natural rainwater or any of that kind of stuff. 12 Gauge says, I sell eggs on Amazon. The seller name is Glasgow's Goods, in case anyone wasn't interested. I remember looking up your listing before, and good luck. I hope you sell lots of eggs. Blessed with Pets says, yes, I'm 13, and so I can't drive, and the buck backs off when I put my hands in to try and lift the doe. My other buck won't try to breed when I'm near his cage. I did manage to get one forced. Well, you're on the right track then. The other thing, too, I don't know. I mean, We hear about putting it in the car and driving around the block, but I'm sure you got a bike. Try strapping that pet carrier on the back of your bike and ride your bike around the block a couple of times. Maybe that'll get them in the mood. Ro S, hello to you. Justin says, just hatched my first batch of quail. Your channel was a lot of help. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you found it helpful, and congratulations on your first hatch. Let's see. Blessed with Pets says fall off, but 38 days later and still no babies. Oh, that's tough. Sounds like you did everything right. Try again. Hopefully you can get it to work again. Casey Outdoors says, as far as age, I banded, I think is what you're saying, with colored zip ties. I have a spreadsheet that tells me when each tie has hatched out, and I only use the blue ties for my males. Well, there you go. Sounds like a lot of work, but that's okay. If you want to nerd out like that, and I don't mean that as a bad thing, then it sounds like you got a great process there. You are probably way more organized than me. I have a tendency to be a little bit more lazy about it and just be like, just get them all, put them in the freezer, and the next batch will replace them. And that's kind of how I do it. But there are times where I do pick out birds to live longer. I just don't I don't go through the effort of banding them or anything like that. Sounds like you've got a pretty nice setup there. I'm glad it's working for you. Justin says, thank you. You're welcome. Let's see. Blessed with Pets. Sounds like something my little brother would do. He's talking to S. McKee. Says he has let my hamsters free multiple times. Yeah, there you go. Maybe that's a solution, huh? Verna says, I would take a couple of dozen eggs and make deviled eggs and take them to the neighbor as a gift. They helps a lot to smooth out hostility. That's a good idea, Verna. Deviled quail eggs. It's hard to turn them down, isn't it? Let's see. Now I have my hamsters in a 40-gallon. Okay. Let's see. Jason says, thanks. I will get a fan to move the air in the garage. There you go. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. Jasmine says, I bought some pickling lime, hydrated lime, to water glass some of my excess eggs as I'm getting 70 to 85 eggs a day. Counters are getting full. Yeah, I know what you mean. Have you water glassed eggs? No, I'm somewhat familiar with the process, but I haven't done it myself. Mostly because I don't have a big enough crock or anything. I mean, I have a fermentation crock, but you don't want to use that for water glassing eggs if you ever plan on using it for fermentation. Once you've used it for water glassing eggs, you can't use it for fermentation. And I'd rather have sauerkraut and things like that than water glassed eggs. But that's just me. No, I haven't actually water glassed eggs myself, but I'm somewhat familiar with it. Hopefully it works out well. I'm sure. I don't see why it wouldn't. Yeah. Let's see. Jeff says Doctor Who fan, LOL. Not a huge fan, but who hasn't watched Doctor Who, right? All right, G. Michael Jr. says, I was going to ask the same question about water glassing. There you go. Well, I'm not the expert on it, so I don't know that. I'm sorry, I got distracted by another comment. Where we at? Water glassing. Yeah, I'm not the expert on water glassing eggs, so I don't know that I can give you a bunch of advice on that. I would think you could probably find some pretty good information in like Mother Earth News or something like that on how to do it. Or there's probably 100 different YouTube videos on how to water glass eggs. All right, says this is somebody that asked me not to repeat their username. Please don't repeat the username. It was college, and I'm not a tech person. Yeah, that's a tough one, isn't it? It's I often say that I'm really glad that we did not have like social media and all that kind of stuff when I was younger, in my early 20s or even before, because we don't have any documentation of all the stupid things we did back then. And, bad usernames are one of those. So goes on to say, let's see, what's the quail ratio between females and males? Excuse me. One male to every 4 to 5 females. That's really about the ideal one. I usually keep one for every 5. And if I have a big group of birds together, I might throw an extra one in there. So 1 for every 5 plus 1 extra rooster just to have on case, something happens. You can do 1 to 6 if you want to. I wouldn't go too much over 6 hens for 1 rooster. You're going to start running into fertility issues. And if you go much less than about 4, then you're going to start running into hens that are being overbred. So definitely don't go too deep with your roosters. S. McKee, let's see, says blessed with pets. Yeah, he put them together twice, and I have not. I had not nest box ready, so I lost all the kits. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Let's see. Jasmine says, Steve, it's getting bad. About the eggs. I scrambled 100 eggs mixed with flax and chia seeds. There we go, to feed back to the quail and the chickens. Doesn't look like I made a dent. Yeah, that's tough. I kind of let my birds quit laying this year. I usually keep the lights on them all year. I let them quit laying. We just got overrun with eggs too, and we weren't using them like we used to. I go through phases where I use a lot of eggs, and then for a period I don't use a lot of eggs. I do the same thing with yogurt. I'll eat yogurt like every day for like a couple months, and then I go for like 3 months without eating yogurt. Or V8. I like V8 quite a bit. I mean, I do that all the time with all kinds of different things. So I just let them quit laying this year. About the time they start laying again in the spring, I'm going to be ready for some eggs. That's for sure. Blessed with pets, would a four-wheeler or side-by-side work? I don't want to freak the dough out. I don't know. Try it out and see. I mean, what do you have to lose? It doesn't work, and you're back to the drawing board. I don't see why not. Try it out. Laura, maybe freaking the dough out is the key. I don't know. Laura Shell Farm, are we out of time? Oh my gosh, we are out of time. Everybody's saying good evening or goodbye and all happy new year and all that. And I didn't even realize it. I was going to keep going, but I really do need to get off here and get some other things done. So I got to most of the comments tonight. Didn't get into them all. Thank you guys for joining me. Happy New Year to all of you. Several of you are saying Happy New Year. So yeah, Happy New Year to you as well. One more question here from G. Michael. I see the queue there. Says, when you give your rabbits and quails water, is it straight from the tap or do you sit it out for a while before you? No, it's just straight. I mean, straight out of the hose. I don't worry about that. If the water is good enough for me and my dog, I mean, I grew up drinking from a water hose on city water. If it's good enough for me, if it's good enough for the dog, it's good enough for the quail, and it's good enough for the rabbits. I don't find an issue with that. I don't worry about it. So again, thank you guys all for joining tonight. I'm going to wrap this one up, go and spend some time with my wife before it's time to go to bed. Hope everybody has a safe and happy new year. Thank you for joining tonight. I think I've said that multiple times, but anyway, I mean it. I do appreciate every single one of you guys. I hope nothing but the best for you in the new year. So that's it for tonight. Thanks again. And as always, God bless.